Welcome, everyone. Ready to dive into Jeannette Walls' The Glass Castle.
Absolutely. Such a powerful memoir.
It really is. And today we're going to explore this kind of unusual world that Walls creates for us.
Her childhood, it was certainly unique.
Yeah, definitely not your typical upbringing. We're going to peel back those layers, really try to understand how those experiences shaped her.
And the impact they had, not just on her, but also on her whole family.
Right, because there are so many fascinating dynamics at play here. And one of the things that really intrigued me, even before reading the book, was the title itself, The Glass Castle.
It draws you in, doesn't it? That image, all that it represents.
Absolutely. It's this symbol of hope, this promise of something better. But at the same time, there's a sense of disillusionment woven throughout the story.
It's that tension between aspiration and reality that really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And to understand those complexities, we need to start with the foundation, the family itself.
The Walls family, yeah, a cast of characters that you won't soon forget.
That's for sure. So let's introduce them properly.
Okay, so we have Rex Walls, the father. Brilliant, incredibly intelligent, but troubled. Struggling with alcoholism, but always clinging to this dream, this grand vision of building this magnificent glass castle for his family.
A better future, he calls it.
Right. And then there's Rosemary, the mother, a free-spirited artist. For her self-expression, her creative pursuits, they seem to take priority over just about everything else.
Including perhaps some of the more practical aspects of parenting.
You could say that, but it's not a simple case of good parent, bad parent. It's much more nuanced than that.
Which is what makes this story so compelling, right? It's messy, it's complicated, it's real.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there are the children, four of them, all trying to navigate this rather, well, unusual environment.
You keep using the word unconventional. What exactly do we mean by that when we talk about the Walls family?
Well, imagine a childhood where you're constantly on the move.
Never putting down roots.
Yeah, constantly uprooted, often living in poverty. Basic needs like food and shelter, those are never guaranteed.
And that takes a toll, not just physically, but emotionally.
Right, because it's not just about the material hardship, it's the emotional landscape, too. There's this fierce love within the family, undeniable. But alongside that love, there's also this thread of profound neglect.
A contradiction, almost.
You could say that, like Rex's dream of the glass castle, it symbolizes a better future, it's a promise of stability, but it never quite materializes.
And that brings us to the heart of the book, this image that sticks with you long after you finish reading The Glass Castle. It represents so much more than just a building, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. For Rex, it's this symbol of everything he wants to provide for his family, this almost utopian vision.
This escape for that reality.
Exactly. But for the children, especially for Jeannette, I think it becomes this symbol of unfulfilled promises, this reminder of the gap between their dreams and their reality.
The hope, so closely intertwined with disappointment.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this story so powerful, because it forces us to ask ourselves, what happens to a child who grows up with this constant reminder of a brighter future that never seems to arrive?
A future that's always just out of reach.
Exactly. Does that child keep clinging to that hope? Or do they learn to see through it, to become cynical, perhaps, even at a young age?
It's a lot for a young mind to grapple with. And one of the things that struck me was the incredible resourcefulness of the Walls children. In the face of this constant instability, they find ways to adapt, to survive.
It's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, think about the situations they're thrown into. They're scavenging for food. They're coping with these sudden chaotic moves. They're facing judgment from outsiders who just don't get it.
Yeah, it's almost like a crash course in resilience.
It is. It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving, about finding those moments of joy and connection amidst the chaos.
And Jeannette, she becomes quite the problem solver, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. She's constantly thinking on her feet, coming up with creative solutions to the challenges they face.
Which speaks to the strength she develops, right? But it's not all sunshine and roses.
No, not at all. There's this dark undercurrent of neglect that runs through their lives alongside that resilience.
That complicates the narrative, for sure. Because there's love, undeniably, but it's often expressed in unconventional, sometimes even harmful ways.
Like that incident where Jeannette nearly drowns. And Rex, instead of comforting her, throws her right back in the water.
To teach her a lesson, he says.
Exactly. It's shocking, isn't it? It highlights those mixed messages, the love and the neglect, all tangled up together.
And you have to wonder, how do you process something like that as a child? It must have a lasting impact.
It does, on their sense of self-worth, on their ability to trust, to form healthy relationships. It raises a lot of questions.
It does. And those are questions we're going to continue exploring as we dive deeper into The Glass Castle.
Because it's in those moments of hardship that we see Jeannette's spirit shine through.
Yeah, it's quite a story. So we left off talking about those pretty intense experiences in Jeannette's childhood.
Those formative years, yeah.
And there's this pivotal moment, right, when Jeannette decides to leave, to head for New York City.
Oh, yeah, that move to New York.
It feels like such a significant turning point, like she's finally breaking free.
It is. It's a huge step. Leaving behind all that instability, all those uncertainties of her past.
A clean break, you might think.
You'd think so, but it's not quite that simple. It's more like she's trading one set of challenges for another, wouldn't you say?
In what way?
Well, imagine trying to build a stable life when you've never really experienced stability. I mean, think about it.
That's a good point, yeah.
And even though there's physical distance, right, between her and her family, she's miles away.
Geographically, at least.
Yeah, but those emotional ties, those are much harder to break.
And that reminds me of something you said earlier about, the long-term effects of her upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
How do those those scars of her past, how do those play out once she's in New York?
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how those early experiences kind of seep into her adult life.
Like how? Give me an example.
Well, take relationships, for instance. Like, can she truly trust people? Can she let herself be vulnerable?
Tough questions.
They are. And you find yourself kind of like root for her, you know?
Wanting her to succeed.
Yeah, but also, holding your breath a little, wondering if those old patterns will resurface.
And it's not just romantic relationships, right?
No, not at all. It's about her relationship with herself, too.
Her sense of self-worth.
Exactly. Can she finally shed those insecurities, those anxieties that were kind of, ingrained in her during her childhood?
It's a lot to unpack.
It is. And that's where the book gets really insightful. Because, and this is important, it's not just a simple happily ever after story. It's not a fairy tale.
There's more to it than that.
Oh, yeah. Walls doesn't shy away from the messiness of Jeanette's journey. We see her struggle with self-doubt, with guilt, with the weight of leaving her family behind.
Even as she's building a new life.
Exactly. So there's this constant tension, right? This pull between wanting to break free from the past, but also knowing that it's an undeniable part of who she is.
That's a struggle I think a lot of people can relate to.
I think so, too. It's a universal theme in a way. We all have experiences that have shaped us, the good, the bad. And the question is, how do we integrate those experiences into our present lives?
How do we make peace with them?
Exactly. How do we acknowledge the past without letting it define us?
Heavy stuff.
It is. But The Glass Castle, it doesn't just present these questions. It also kind of nudges us towards some possible answers. Like, look at how Walls chooses to portray her parents.
That's a good point, yeah.
She could have easily painted them as villains, right? Given everything they put her through.
But she doesn't.
No, she doesn't. Instead, she offers this incredibly compassionate, almost unsettling understanding of their flaws.
And that's what makes this story so powerful, right?
Yeah, I think so. It challenges us to look beyond simple labels, to see the humanity even in those who have hurt us.
To acknowledge their struggles.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, could Jeanette's journey have unfolded differently?
Under different circumstances.
Yeah, like what if society had offered more support to her family? What if Rex had, gotten help for his alcoholism? What if Rosemary had made different choices?
A lot of what ifs.
There are, and those what ifs, they stay with you. They make you think about the systemic factors that contribute to these situations.
Yeah, and how those factors, they intersect with personal choices.
Right. It's complex, it's messy, and it reminds us that personal responsibility is crucial.
But it's not the whole story.
Definitely not. There are those broader societal forces at play that we can't ignore.
We've talked about Jeanette's incredible resilience, her ability to overcome such a truly unique upbringing.
Yeah.
And yet I keep coming back to those moments in the book where she talks about her parents with so much compassion.
Mm-hmm.
It's striking, especially considering everything they put her through.
It is. It really makes you think.
How can someone who experienced such, neglect and instability turn around and offer this really nuanced understanding of the people who caused it all?
Right. It's a question that stays with you.
It does.
I think it
yeah.
speaks to the complexity of family, of love within a family.
Even when it's messy?
Even when it's, incredibly messy and dysfunctional.
There can still be those threads of genuine affection there.
Absolutely. Even amidst the pain.
Earlier you mentioned how The Glass Castle isn't just a personal story, but also a social commentary of sorts.
It is, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? What broader issues does Jeanette's story bring to light?
Well, you can't read this book without confronting some really tough realities about poverty, about addiction.
And how those things can become almost cyclical.
Exactly, like with Rex's alcoholism, for example.
Yeah.
It's not just a personal failing, it's a symptom of something much larger, something systemic.
Tied to economic hardship.
Yeah, a lack of opportunity, a system that doesn't always provide the support that people need.
So it challenges us to look beyond those individual choices,
To see the bigger picture.
to consider the context,
And that's crucial if we want to have any kind of meaningful conversation about these issues.
because it's easy to judge.
Oh, it is. So easy to just point fingers and blame individuals for their circumstances.
But the glass castle forces us to dig a little deeper.
To think about those broader societal forces at play.
And it makes you wonder,
Mm-hmm.
what could have been different for the Walls family?
Right, like what if...
What if they had access to more resources, more support, affordable housing, health care, programs to help with addiction?
It's impossible not to think about those things.
It is. And while we can't change the past,
No.
those what-if questions, they're powerful.
They can be a catalyst for change.
They make us think about how we can create a better system, a more supportive environment.
For everyone.
It's a reminder that personal resilience, as important as it is, it's not always enough.
No, we need systemic change to really address these issues, to break those cycles of poverty and addiction.
And I think that's what makes this book so valuable.
It's not about simple solutions.
It's about nuance.
About asking tough questions.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Glass Castle, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts.
Okay.
What do you hope people will take away from this exploration of Jeannette Walls' story?
I hope they'll come away with a better understanding of how complicated families can be.
For sure.
And the incredible resilience of the human spirit.
And how those societal forces, how they shape our lives, for better or worse.
It's a story that sticks with you. It makes you think, and hopefully it inspires some action.
Because even from those really difficult beginnings,
Yeah.
there's always hope.
Always.
There's always a chance for growth, for transformation.
I believe that...
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of the Glass Castle.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it as insightful and thought-provoking as we have.